Beverage Container Management Board. I'm the president there, and we are the regulatory agency that oversees the bottle deposit system in Alberta.
And we're here at the Recycling Council event, and you recounted your latest stats. Run them by me, because they're pretty impressive.
Yeah, we manage over 2 billion containers a year on a recovery system that achieves an 86% return rate. And some of the more important values that I see in our system as a result of those 2 billion containers is more than 3,100 jobs, more than $30 million a year kicks back to charities on a not-for-profit organization basis. And it's a $350 million economy that exists in 171 different communities in Alberta.
That's crazy. We don't pause to think about that very often, do we?
No, those are stats that I get used to saying, but even now as you respond, that's pretty amazing to think that some small percentage of the landfill, less than 2% of what normally would go to the waste in another jurisdiction, it has that economic power.
And yet, I just learned today, and I forget about this, there are places that don't do this still.
No, there is
many
not.
places.
You're correct. There's only a handful of jurisdictions in North America that actually have deposit return systems in play.
So even Quebec, a province in Canada, only has a partial system.
Very partial, yeah. It's only on soft drink.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm hearing a lot from all you recycling guys, and I'll put you guys all in the same box here, is this thing called EPR, which is an acronym. What does the acronym stand for? What the heck is that?
Extended Producer Responsibility is what EPR stands for, and it's a move to ask or request manufacturers take responsibility for their product at end of life and the costs associated with that, so that it doesn't become a taxpayer burden as it has been typically in blue box programs, but it's the manufacturers taking responsibility for what they're putting into the marketplace and paying to have it not end up in the landfill.
So draw me a picture, Jeff. I've heard so much about this, many sessions about this. What does it look like on the ground?
I think it looks like some very high-level regulations that have an effective oversight body that give the manufacturers the freedom to design the program themselves in the most effective, most efficient, most cost-effective way, as long as they achieve those outcomes. If we think about 100 years ago or 150 years ago, municipalities took on the responsibility of collecting what they used to call dust bins. And that's because that was the only thing that was there. And in this age, post-World War II of disposability, manufacturers have made disposable goods, consumers have consumed disposable goods and thrown it into that dustbin and said, it's not my problem. And now the municipalities are saying, we don't want it to be our problem either because our landfills are filling up.
So I'm a company, I produce shampoo, I sell it in a plastic bottle. What does that look like? What happens?
So it would be an assessment of how much weight of plastic you're putting into the system compared to the cost of keeping that shampoo bottle out of the landfill, and then you would be charged that amount based on the amount that you sell in, and then you as a manufacturer would have an opportunity to join forces with other manufacturers either provincially or nationally to execute a program that optimizes the recovery of that material, and you achieve an environmental standard that might look like 80, 85, 90% guarantee that none of that material ends up in the landfill, where you may pay even levies if you don't achieve those diversion targets.
So who does that work? I mean, you said it was the municipalities, so they design their own system, or they collectively do, like, how does that work?
Yeah, right now, unfortunately, municipalities are acting quite independently to design their own collection system, blue box program, whatever they want to call it, and manufacturers are stepping in and saying, you can't have a different program in every municipality, never mind every province, and expect me to achieve economic scale to be able to do something with this material at the end of it. And so they're looking for harmonization, and that's why they want to step in and say, I can do a better job of running this because I don't have the same borders to deal with that you do.
And so we would see a massive amalgamation of all this waste, and you would suddenly have economies of scale. Is that right?
Absolutely, economies of scale. Without those borders, we have consolidation and collaboration across what historically we have thought of as competitors, where Procter & Gamble and Unilever are working together to produce a system and divert more material than they could individually.
So you guys have already proven how this works, and you just shared the tremendous benefits of doing this in one little sector. Why haven't we done this?
Well, that's without pointing fingers. I think there's a cost associated with doing the right thing, and until somebody says thou shalt pay the cost,
right?
There's a consumer demand to drive to a cheaper and cheaper product on the shelf, and so we're actually hurting ourselves when we say no. There's an environmentally friendly product and a non-environmentally friendly product that's 2 cents less. I'm going to choose the non-environmentally friendly because the 2 cents is important to me. And I think where we're coming to is this perfect storm where it says the manufacturers are engaging, the politicians are engaging, and society is engaging all at the same time. And we're actually doing it with a generation of people who do not and are not interested in accumulation the way you and I at our generation have been historically. We stepped out of World War II and said, man, I have to hold on to stuff because that's in case I run out, right? This generation that we're seeing, Generation Z come up, does not have that mentality. They don't care if they own a car, never mind what kind of car it is. And so these people are willing to say, what's the environmental right thing to do? And the manufacturers are saying, well, give me an opportunity to take control and I'll sell the products to those people that make sense. And that's where I think we have this perfect storm: global awareness, media laceration of everything that's out there in terms of good, bad, and ugly, and everybody able to jump on and be so aware of anything on an instantaneous level.
And you've got the problems, plastics in oceans, which we've heard about, and many others at this conference. You've got climate change. So that's all part of this perfect storm, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's exciting times, and I think it's going to, we didn't even have we thought of the word viral. What did you think when you thought of the word viral even 5 years ago, never mind today? It's being able to take something at a global level so quickly and impact people's lives and in their emotions and put them in a position of having knowledge that it might have taken 20 years to get to before is literally instantaneous.
Well, I know it's funny because I know you guys have been coming to these conferences for many years, and every year you talk about, gee, if there was just a way to make this a social movement. Is this going to help us do that?
I think this is the moment, and if we think about the social media level of this and the ability to get information across the globe, that's the if you will, the green energy that's going to drive this change.
Right. So you said, and we backed way into this question, which was my original premise for wanting to talk to you, was you said something when you were on the stage at the recycling conference. You said that change is coming, and it's coming very quickly, literally within the next couple of years. And I want to know what you mean by that.
Well, and I think we've kind of danced around it here in the last couple of minutes, David. I think I think that we're at the precipice of change because we're seeing an awakening in legislators wanting to respond to the constituents that they represent. So they're drafting legislation. We're seeing the manufacturers step into their role, not fighting against it, not ignoring it, but embracing it and saying, this is part of the new social platform that my organization has to stand on in order to survive in the next two generations, if you will. And we've got the social media component of making everybody so aware, and you put all that together with the energy that this next generation has, and they don't have the same baggage that you and I had, and they are going to be the ones that create this change. And the social movement is going to create so much enthusiasm and energy that nobody is going to be able to stop it.
So you see things like movements, which is an indicator of political willingness to ban things like straws and bags, not as the ultimate solution, but as symbols of our readiness to actually take action that matters.
Yeah, exactly. A thought that came to me over the weekend as I was listening to all these excellent speakers was a monsoon starts with a few drops. And the straw bans and the plastic bag bans and those kinds of things, to me, are the early indicators that a monsoon is coming.
Great. So are you excited about this?
Absolutely. It's been 30 years, and sometimes you get really kind of you feel a little bit hopeless when you walk away and see the same old, but there's never been, to me, more energy than I've experienced here in the last 3 days in terms of gathering hope for change.
How big of a business opportunity do you think this is? Because you know this from your involvement in your sector, which you said is only 2% of the problem. How big are we talking?
Well, I'd have to do some quick math in my head, but I think we're talking about tens of thousands of jobs, and we're talking about billions of dollars of created wealth by taking these resources that we're currently they have no value, and we add value to them simply because it's a resource that we can use, and it's an activity that engages people and creates an economy around the process of not just using and disposing of, but actually gathering back together.
In fact, one could argue they have a negative value because there are costs associated with us dealing with it as a waste, as environmental problems, whatever.
Yeah, that's the whole aspect of the net economy.
Yeah.
It's not just what does the plastic cost, what does it cost if we leave it where it's at now?
I don't know if this is your area, but I just heard about EPR literally 3 weeks ago when I interviewed Christina Seidel from the Recycling Council. I find that very fascinating. This is an area I've been in, related areas, and I find that amazing, and it gets me kind of jazzed about this stuff. But it's happening other places already, isn't it? Where is it happening already?
Extended producer responsibility has probably been on a global level a growing movement that's probably most active in jurisdictions in Europe. Again, because they're probably quite a bit farther ahead of us in terms of population density and you know, the NIMBYism of I don't want a landfill in my backyard, and you run out of space and you run out of resources. So you know, they've been on that journey for quite a while, probably 10 or 15 years to be fair. EPR is something that we've talked about here at our level, in the know people, and it's only starting to hit the social pages that is actually giving people outside of our industry the opportunity to hear about it for the first time.
So there are a few provinces doing this?
There are provinces engaged in various levels. BC was first out of the gate here in Canada in terms of implementing what they're calling an EPR program for packaging. Our program has been considered EPR since the term was coined back in 1991 in Sweden, and the best example of EPR programs are the deposit return schemes that you see around the world, but they don't have to have a deposit to be called EPR, and they don't have to be contained to one material stream to be EPR.
So one of the things I've heard again and again this weekend from various sources is that if we're going to do EPR, it needs to be relatively harmonized. We heard business say that, we heard political people say that, because there are borders, and borders with different standards on different sides of the borders are a problem, right?
Yeah. We can do collection programs like ours at a jurisdictional level because it's effective. But if we don't treat it as simply a hub and spoke for a greater system, then we're not going to achieve the efficiencies of scale that are necessary for these material streams to be viable. If we think about the production of plastic comes out in hundreds of thousands of tons or millions of tons, or kinds of the orders of magnitude. And those are the kinds of orders of magnitudes that we have to stay at on the other side of the scale in order for the systems to work effectively at delivering good quality material back into the consumer production system.
So how soon do you think we'll see something like this in Alberta?
Well, you called me on my prediction on Wednesday. I said 2 to 5 years. I think we're going to see the momentum significantly change in the next 2 to 5 years. That's going to change the trajectory.
That's amazing. Hello.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And I'll still call it. I think we're going to see a change in trajectory in the next 2 to 5 years that's going to set us on a significantly different path than we've been on for the last 30.
That must make you feel pretty good. You've been plodding along for all these years, and then suddenly you get these things happen.
Yeah. It's quite satisfying. It creates a new sense of energy for me, and I'm going to go back with a renewed sense of interest and hopefulness in terms of doing my job on Monday.
Well, Jeff, thank you for thinking about the question and coming back with a good answer.
You bet. Thanks for your time, Dave.